Good afternoon and welcome to Medellin and the weekly market summary for the week of May the 29th from InterBolsa. For those who believe that no news is good news, then this was the week for you, because effectively it was a shortened working week, and keeping with everyone else, we had a holiday on Monday, and there wasn't a tremendous amount of news during the week. We'll start with the markets. The coal cap itself rose 2.28%. Volume on average was fairly good, over $50 million, but it was somewhat, it's not an accurate interpretation, because yesterday we had a large cross in Cementos Argos of $50 million alone, so once you strip that out, it was actually a much calmer week. The test market, really pretty much unchanged. In fact, for 2020, ended up a few basis points higher than it was the previous week. That market, the bond market, is awaiting the results of the CPI data, which will be out on June the 5th. That'll be the May CPI data. The peso, though, was some 3% stronger this week, in keeping with the global move against the dollar. Nothing spectacular or different in Colombia. The main news of the week was actually the central bank meeting, which just concluded now. The move rate's down from 6% to 5%. That's fully expected, and we personally don't think they'll be moving any further for the time being. But the central bank are implying that the exact statement was the next move will be smaller. It'll be dependent on data. They expect the economy to recover in the second half of the year, and that the financial system is very strong. So a very positive statement out of them. As I say, we don't expect them to move maybe for 2 or 3 months. Again, depends on data. Moving on to news. The main news in politics this week, there really weren't many developments on the referendum situation. They have now announced on Tuesday the Congress and Senate will sit down and discuss who's going to discuss whether it'll be 2010 or 2014. As you can gather, there's a lot of discussion going on, but not much action. The biggest individual event was this morning in El Espectador, which is one of the mainline newspapers today. Uribe wrote an open letter thanking Juan Manuel Santos for his help, his time in the defense ministry, thanking his family, outlining everything he'd done. For those who don't believe that Uribe is going to be a kingmaker if he doesn't run in 2010, this was a pretty close indication of exactly where he lies, who he would support, without saying it in so many words. Macro data, apart from the central bank, there was nothing this week at all. Moving on to stock news, there was very little. Most of it revolved around Ecopetrol. Ecopetrol, first up, closed the deal for hot coal. That's now a fully owned subsidiary. The price was as originally agreed, but there will be an add-on, depending on oil prices, also depending on the well where they recently found oil. If that proves successful, we'll have to pay a little more. Also with Ecopetrol, the Glencore refinery conversations go on. But more interestingly, the Minister of Energy and Mining, who's a man who does like to grab a headline or two, said that there's a strong possibility, and they're studying right now, to spin off the refinery and maybe list it separately on the Bolsa. Very innovative and quite encouraging. So we'll see how that develops, but that could be a long-term project. Finally, Ecopetrol put together a syndicated loan of 2.2 trillion pesos here, just about $1 trillion, my apologies, and they will get that money from the local banks. That still leaves them a little bit more to raise, and we'll have to see where they go for that. In the banking sector, that was the only sector with news really, and that was part of it. And the other part of it was that today we newspaper headlines that perhaps the government is looking to put limits on commissions or on fees in the banks. This is part of the financial reform package. Very difficult to make out whether it's just politicians talking or whether it could in fact come to something. Isagen had their debt lowered from AAA to AA+. This is because of the huge Sogamoso hydroelectric project where they're going to have to take out a lot more debt. Cementos Argos had a successful commercial paper rollover this week. They rolled over 80 billion pesos of commercial paper. They initially looked to do 60, but it was three times oversubscribed, so they took advantage to issue a little bit more. From Medellin, that really is about it. Not much else going on. Sunny outside. I'll be disappearing to the farm. I bid everyone a very, very good weekend.